This is Glasgow Rangers Nation. I'm Owen James. This is all your latest Rangers news. Look, I genuinely want to ask a question. What is going on? What the hell is going on? Rangers at this moment in time. You genuinely could not make this up. I mean, you just couldn't make it up. I mean, I don't know. It's incredible. It really is. Obviously, where are we on? What are we on about? Well, we're obviously on about the Europa League squad coming out, and obviously the revelations that have come about as a result of the Europa League squad coming out. But obviously, Europa League squad is released. No Robbie Matondo, no Deno. He gets fans going. Questions been raised. Why the hell's Deno not in there? What's up with Robbie Matondo? All this situation that's going on at this present moment in time. So many questions. Just so much. Debate, and then obviously it comes out about the injuries to both players, and not great news about Robbie Matondo in terms of the length of time that he's going to be out, and again more injury woes for Deno. So you kind of just, I don't know, you just sit as a fan and you kind of just, I don't know, you're just bemused by the whole thing. You genuinely are utterly bemused. Now, look, why am I bemused? Let's just talk. We'll look at the Euro squad in a minute. So if you haven't seen the Europa League squad, it's coming up shortly. But what's going on? What the hell is going on? Now, towards the end of last season, the start of this season, we were told that, the squad wasn't fit enough. We were told that, Phillipe Clement said about, putting things in place and sorting out what was going on and, getting the players fitter and getting, the end to this constant injury woes that we seem to have. As a club, we seem to be going through some sort of constant injury curse, as if some sort of, I don't know, gypsy from the past has put a curse on us and we need some way of exorcising the ghost of this gypsy to, or whatever it is, to stop the curse reoccurring. But it just seems that we're stuck in some sort of Groundhog Day injury woe kind of story. Deno himself, talks about, we talk about Deno. We've all raised multiple questions about why Deno is missing. Why is he not playing? Why is he not getting minutes? He's on the bench, so he must be fit enough to play if he's on the bench, but then he doesn't get play, but then he gets some. It's just so confusing. Now, apparently, he's had another injury. Apparently, well, let's have a look. This is what four lads had to say about the whole Deno situation. Deno's had a small setback with his knee. It's not a repeat or a serious injury. He's travelling to Holland today for some treatment and rehab. Faces 3 to 4 weeks out. He had to wear a brace today to travel as per advice. Common in these big injuries, a setback, but it happens. Further to this, the player is already back in the gym doing work. The plan is to use Danny domestically and build him up before we put him in the European squad. That gives him a chance to get fitter. Injury is not a big one. Well, what is going on with this? He faces 3 to 4 weeks out, but it's not a big injury. Well, he's still out. Yes, okay, 3 to 4 weeks is not a big injury. And then we had the whole comments that Clement made about, when he was questioned by David Edgar of Heart and Hand as regards that limp that he quite noticeably had. That's the way Deno walks. Well, it obviously wasn't the way Deno walks. It was obviously related to this knee injury. So, why did the manager not, be wholly factual in his response to that question? I've got to be careful what I say here. The whole situation is just ridiculous. How does a player come back from injury, yet hardly plays, is on the bench, and apparently is fit enough to be on the bench, but not fit enough to play, then get injured again, not playing, and seemingly then come back against St Johnstone, score. Sorry, against Ross County. Sorry, not St Johnstone. Against Ross County, score. And then be injured again. It just doesn't add up. It just does not add up. And it's kind of an ongoing story. What is going on with the fitness work? What is going on with the strength and conditioning work? What is going on with the medical work that has been done at this club? Because to me, it just seems that it's one injury after another for Deno. And is this because Deno has a major injury problem? Is this because Deno is now a player that we no longer can rely on? He's become a Ryan Jack-esque injury nightmare, Kemar Roof style forward nightmare in terms of his injuries. Now, if this is the case, if the club were aware that there was complications with this knee injury and that the fact that he was not fully fit and he was not able to get back and able to compete in Europe, where we need our strongest squad, then why did they not take action to go out and sign another centre forward? Why did they think that 3 strikers would be enough when clearly one of them wasn't fully enough fit? It now is a situation where we have Cyril Dessers. We'll talk a bit about that in the Europa Squad shortly. And we have an untried kid from Morocco. And that is it, without obviously going into the B team, which, Clement doesn't seem willing to do, with Zach Lovelace, Josh Gentles, for example. And the whole thing just kind of smacks of, I don't know, just a lack of leadership, a lack of organization, a lack of just a whole lack of professionalism at the top of this football club, right down to from the board all the way down through the recruitment staff, through the director of recruitment, to the manager, to the coaching staff, to the doctors, to the medical staff. It just beggars belief. It really does, how a player, this whole Deno situation has been handled. I don't know. He wasn't using him because obviously blatantly he wasn't fit. But then he does. It confuses the hell out of me. It really genuinely does, and just smacks of very poor management, very poor organisation, very poor, just all round very poor from Rangers. And obviously, we get the news as regards Rabbi Matondo. Now, Matondo was injured. We reported that on the video yesterday that he was out injured. And we didn't really know how long Matondo was going to be out for. Now, he was called up for the Wales squad. He was then sent back from the Wales squad, and it now emerges that the injury is more serious than we first thought. He's out for 6 to 8 weeks. Now, remember, this was a player who was the subject of a loan bid from Norwich City on the last day of the transfer window, and we turned it down. A player who has a record of injury, a player who has a record of, getting injured, coming back, getting injured again, and going out again. So, you've got to kind of question the wisdom in keeping hold of a player that, a club was prepared to, okay, yes, take on loan initially with perhaps an option to buy being included in the contract, but then is out for now 6 to 8 weeks. Now, that's on top of obviously the time that he missed last season, when again he missed a good portion of the season through injury, and now he's out again. It appears that this constant injuries and this constant players not being available for selection is not coming to an end at any point soon. Now, Clement, like I said, spoke about this. He talked about the need to keep his players fit. He talked about different fitness regimes. He criticised Michael Beale. Let's face it, I'm not saying for a minute that Michael Beale was good, because he wasn't. He was awful. I mean, let's face it, I don't personally believe this squad or any Rangers squad has been fit since the Steven Gerrard days. I think Steven Gerrard was the last manager to get this squad actually truly fit and actually truly firing and actually truly match sharp and match ready. It's just, utterly ludicrous to be in this position. When we're short of wingers, we didn't sign a winger. We signed Bajrami, who's a 10 but can also play as a winger. So I suppose you've kind of got a winger there. But then if you put Bajrami out on the wing, which we now may have to do, are we going to lessen why he was bought and have to be stuck with Tom Lawrence at 10 or Dio at 10, which doesn't work? Yanis Hadji's not going to be used under any circumstances due to Phillipe Clement's stubbornness over that. The best 10 we had was chased out of the club. It now emerges. So look, it just seems utterly chaotic at the moment within the club. It's a situation that's very hard to get your head around what is actually going on at Rangers at this moment in time as regards the players. And, I think obviously the hope is that Oscar Cortez can get back fit. If Cortez is fit, then we can play Cortez and Tierney. Keep Bajrami for the 10 role. It's very, very chaotic. Now, this is the Europa League squad that Phillipe Clement has named, and I've got some issues with this squad, of course. Jack Butland, Liam Kelly, Lewis Bowdenakis. For me, they're the best 3 keepers we've got. Jack Butland, yes, has had a few dodgy spells recently. Liam Kelly, decent backup. Lewis Bowdenakis, unless you've watched a lot of B team games, you probably don't know a lot about him. The defence, James Tavernier, Ridvan Yilmaz. Another one who's not fit, but yet is in the Euro squad. And apparently the reason we're not putting Deno in the squad is that he will miss games because he's not fit, but then it will use him domestically to get his fitness up to bring him back for Europe. I don't know. It's not adding up for me. It genuinely isn't adding up for me. We put Ridvan, who's injured, into a Euro squad because he's injured and can't play at all. Yet we won't put Deno in because he's injured, but will only be used domestically to get his fitness back up. Then we'll be including the Euro squad once he's fit again. Like I said, it just doesn't make any sense. Robin Proper, John Suter, Dujon Sterling, Hefte, Narasheo Casanwejo, and Leon Balogun. Yes, you read that right. James Tavernier in the Europa League squad. This is a guy who can't defend in Scotland, can't cope with the Scottish teams, can't even cope, can't cope with Celtic, and we expect him to be able to defend at a higher level in the Europa League. Well, that's just fucking amazing. Midfielders: Oscar Cortez, Connor Barron, Mohamed Diamande, Nadim Badrami, Kieran Dowell, and Nicholas Raskin. Oscar Cortez, good to see him in there. Hopefully he can get back to, the form that he showed at times last season. Connor Barron, top player. Love Connor Barron. Mohamed Diamande, I think if he's used as an 8, not a 10, good player. Nadim Bajrami, there is so much expectation on Nadim. I hope that he can live up to that expectation. I really do. The guy's a baller. The guy's a good footballer. I've watched tape of him. I've watched video of him. And I'm not talking about YouTube highlights. He looks a very good footballer. Nicholas Raskin, hopefully he can get his form back. Nicholas Raskin is a good player. I mean, yes, he's had moments where he's really let himself down over the last sort of season and a bit. But if we go back to the original Raskin that we signed, that's a good footballer. And if we can get him back to that, a player that can run, go box to box, a player who passed through the lines, a player that has done it on the 21 level for Belgium. So hopefully, that's a positive. Forwards, I mean, that for me is one of the weakest group of forwards I have ever seen in my entire life in a Rangers squad. I mean, calling Tom Lawrence a forward is a joke anyway, but Cyril Dessers, Václav Černý, and Hamza Igmane. I mean, realistically, we've got absolutely nothing going forward, not in the 9 role. I mean, Cyril Dessers, look, say what you want, about him score. He scores goals against St Johnstone. He scores goals against Ross County. He scores goals against Dundee, against Hibs, against the poorer teams in Scotland. His European record is shocking. I think he's got 2 goals in the last 2 seasons in Europe for Rangers. And we saw against Dynamo Kiev how ineffective he was. And we saw against PSV Eindhoven, the Champions League qualifiers last year, how ineffective he was. He scored 1 goal in the whole of the Europa League campaign and it was a good goal, don't get me wrong. We saw against Celtic how ineffective he was. So we're now relying on a forward that you can't rely on in big games to deliver for you. So where do you go with that? Deno obviously isn't fit, or is fit enough for Scottish games, but not fit enough for European games, or will be, or won't be. I don't know. And we're falling back on a lad and a kid who no one knows anything about. A kid who, makes his debut in a game where we're already losing big time. And he gets stuck out on the fucking wing, for God's sake. I mean, it just beggars belief. It really genuinely does. Now, I mean, that squad doesn't give me hope. I'll be absolutely honest with you. Given the caliber of teams that we've got to play, the Manchester Uniteds, the Spurs, of this world, the Olympic Lyons, the teams that we have to face in this Europa League group, it's not promising. I'll be absolutely honest with you. It genuinely isn't promising, not with that squad. I'm very confused by the whole situation, I've got to say. Partly because, of course, like I said, we were promised a squad that would be fitter, that would be, more injury hardy, that would be more able to stand up to the wears and tears of the game and to come through those games. Yet we don't seem to have that. We seem to be cycling back towards last season, where we've had Cortez out injured. Now, we've got Matondo out injured, Deno out injured, Ridvan out injured. It's a constant cycle. It's the same players season in, season out who are getting injured, yet nothing is seemingly done about this. It just makes no sense. It's kind of a Kamaru Ryan Jack-esque Groundhog Day all over again in terms of the injuries. And a manager who, at this moment in time is regularly contradicting himself with what he says. He says, oh, well, we've changed things, we've improved things, we get players fitter, yet we don't seem to have players fitter. He talked about that. He talked about changing the medical staff. He talked about changing the sports science and using that to help him. And yet It doesn't seem to be working, whatever they're doing. It's just very confusing. Very confusing indeed. And then you've got the whole situation where Todd Canwell gives an interview today to, I think it was to Blackburn Rovers media, and he talks about the fact that under no circumstances did he ever say that he didn't want to play for Rangers. He talked about discussions been ongoing always between him and the manager, and that something wasn't quite right there. I know there's obviously going to be people saying, well, it's because he couldn't follow instructions, but often, when you've got a player who is slightly an enigma, slightly, a bit of a loose cannon, they don't tend to. I'm sure there's times, and I'm not saying that Canwell's anywhere near as good as these players, but, you look at the Mbappes, you look at the Ronaldos, you look at the Messis, the Haalands, the De Bruynes, the Odegaards, the Salahs of this world. I'm sure there's times when they don't follow instructions and they play off the cuff and they do what they want, because that's what footballers do. And surely the test of any manager and his man management skills is being able to control that and channel that. And also it kind of calls into question a little bit what Phillipe Clement's been saying again. He talks about the fact that, it wasn't his choice that Canwell wasn't playing, insinuating that it was Canwell's choice that he wasn't playing. Yet Canwell's now said that was never his decision, and he never said that. Now, someone is not telling, the whole facts on this story. There's something not quite right about this. I think there's blame on both sides when it comes to Canwell and to Clement. Look, I've backed Clement to the hilt to this point. I've got to admit, starting to have big doubts about him as a manager because of the fact that, the injury things, the fact that he says one thing 1 minute and then it changes the next, that some of his decisions in terms of selections, in terms of substitutions are just utterly bizarre. His post-match comments are just, at times, are just absolutely ridiculous and almost laughable. I mean, the whole Celtic game, let's face it, if you actually watch that game and, Clement to come out and say, well, they had 4 shots, we had 4 shots, we competed well. Well, did you watch the game with your eyes closed then, Phillipe? Because I think I'll tell you that there's 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100,000 Rangers fans and more will tell you that we didn't compete well and we were lucky not to get beat 5, 6, 7-0. The decision to obviously keep picking Tavernier, the decision to keep playing certain players who are just not good enough for the team is just very weird. It's very strange. The drop-off. I think I read somewhere that we've only won 9 of our last 22 games, which is pretty poor. Now, I don't put much store in winning percentages, because actually, if you put that down to whoever's got the best percentages, the best manager, well, that'll be Michael Beale. His is 72%, which is even higher than Walter Smith's. But, that's just a stupid thing to say. But look, at the end of the day, 9 wins in 22, I've listened to and I've spoken to some Monaco fans, and you're starting to see some correlation with his time at Monaco and his time at Rangers, and it's concerning. It's worrying. Yes, I still back him. Yes, I hope that he turns it round. I certainly do. Yes, I want this team to go on and be successful. But with all that's going on at the moment, it just seems utterly confusing, the whole situation. And it really is a case of what the hell is going on at the club. I personally believe, I said this on Twitter yesterday, or X, whatever you want to call it, the club is rotten from the core outwards. That you look at the top of the club, the Park family and John Bennett, absolutely rotten to the core, running the club into the ground, making poor decision after poor decision after poor decision. And quite frankly, the sooner they're gone, the better. The manager making bizarre decisions, the players not giving a fuck. There's something not right here, and we need a major overhaul. We need a massive reinvestment. Graham Souness spoke today about needing to spend 50 million on this team to get us to even compete with Celtic, which is just alarming, considering we don't have 50 million, and probably won't for the foreseeable. So it's concerning times at the club. And, as someone who loves this club, it is just, it's upsetting. It's upsetting. It genuinely upsets me. And people say to you, well, why are you being negative? I'm trying to just report what I see and talk about what I actually see happening. And as someone who actually gives a fuck about the club, as someone who actually cares about this club, who wants to see this club back to where it belongs at the top of the Scottish game, maybe I'm spoiled. I grew up, like I said, watching the Souness teams, the Smith teams, the Advocat teams, the McLeish, Baguette teams. That's what I grew up watching. I started supporting Rangers back in 86, 87 when the Graham Souness. I saw the Souness era. I saw the Walter Smith era. I saw 9 in a row. I saw all that. I saw Gaza, I saw Laudrup and Lovenkrands and Yelovich and Big Ammo and Gattuso and Barry Ferguson and, you know, and Gorham and Richard Goff and Terry Butcher and Gary Stevens, second best right back in the club's history after Sandy Jardine. You know, please don't say that Tav's better than Gary Stevens. That's just bloody disrespectful. But, you know, it is just really worrying as a fan and as someone who actually genuinely cares about the club and genuinely wants to see this club do well. You know, it is worrying. Guys, let me know what you think of what's going on, because I'm just genuinely confused over the whole situation. Well, thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. Well, I was trying, you know, bring some more videos today, get some more clarification on what the hell is going on at the club. As always, guys, on the way out, please smash that like. And remember always, no matter what's happening at the club, we are the people.